Good evening and welcome to Metro Focus. I'm Rafael P. Rahman. The Tree of Life shooting in Pittsburgh on October of last year claimed 11 lives, the worst act of anti-Semitic violence in American history. The attack on the Chabad of Poway Synagogue near San Diego on April 27th, the last day of Passover, claimed the life of Lori Kay, who threw herself in front of the synagogue's rabbi to protect him from harm. According to the Anti-Defamation League, 2018 saw more than 1,800 recorded attacks against Jews and Jewish institutions. That's the third highest year on record since the 1970s, when the ADL first started tracking anti-Semitic attacks. In New York, NYPD statistics confirm that the number of hate crimes against Jews are up nearly 40% from 2016. And so, today, Jewish leaders are left to confront a new normal and to question the cause of the rising hate. Joining us now to share his perspective on what's behind this disturbing reality and what we can do about it is one of the most prominent Jewish voices in the country, best-selling author, Rabbi Shmuley Boteach. Rabbi, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Ralph.
Now, anti-Semitism is clearly on the rise across the world, not just in this country, but for the sake of time, let's focus on this country. What's causing this rise in anti-Jewish hate?
Well, there's anti-Semitism of the left and the right. I actually think that they're linked, but the anti-Semitism of the left is what we're seeing from people like Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who will speak in the halls of Congress openly about a Jewish cabal to control the world with money, buying off politicians, accusing us of dual loyalty. Rashida Tlaib did the same thing. This has never happened in the halls of Congress. On the extreme right, you have the rise of neo-Nazi fascists, white supremacists who've always hated Jews. Of course, Hitler and the Nazis were white supremacists, nationalist fascists, murderers who engaged in the largest genocide in the history of the world. The link between them, I think, is where the Jews were always targets. If something bad is happening, it's always because of the Jews. So we in the community really were hoping that 70 years after the biggest mass murder in the history of the world, that the global consciousness would have been awoken to the dangers of anti-Semitism, and the world would have frightened itself as to what it's capable of when it's seized by this terrible eternal hatred. But instead, it seems that we're beginning to forget the horrors of the Holocaust, and anti-Semitism is coming back.
So let's break it down. Let's talk about anti-Semitism on the right. As you know, some progressives believe that they were given a green light by President Trump. In fact, Joy Behar, one of the hosts of The View, essentially blamed Donald Trump for the San Diego attack, saying this about Donald Trump and white nationalists. Quote, he gives dog whistles constantly to these people, white nationalists. And addressing him directly, she says, take responsibility for your actions, Mr. President. You are the culprit. Do you agree with that?
I like Joy very much. She's a friend, but she's absolutely wrong here. The shooter, the murderer in San Diego, published a manifesto of how much he hates Trump because he's a Jew lover. His son-in-law is Jewish. His daughter is Jewish. His grandchildren are Jewish. He's been the most pro-Israel president, moved the embassy, et cetera, et cetera. So how could she possibly say this guy liked Trump? The man was saying he hated Trump. Same thing was true with the Pittsburgh shooter. The Pittsburgh shooter said that Trump is controlled by Jews, has been taken over by Jews, et cetera. When it comes to Charlottesville, the president should have been much more condemnatory of white nationalists. I accept that. But he has more than made up for it. In his State of the Union address, well before the California shooting, he devoted maybe 10% of the State of the Union address, his biggest speech of the year, to condemning anti-Semitism. He said it over and over again. He has really stood with Israel. So I don't think that's a fair criticism. I think what is certainly true is that white nationalism is on the rise in the United States. But you can't disconnect this from the progressive, who condemn Israel day and night, and they try to say that anti-Zionism is not a form of anti-Semitism, when in truth, hatred of Israel is because it's the Jewish state. There's no other way to explain why this tiny little...
Yeah. And we'll get to that in a second, but let's go back to the President Trump's alleged connection to the rise in white nationalist, anti-Jewish hatred. I mean, the fact of the matter is that David Duke, after Charlottesville, praised the president, and it's a fact that Richard Spencer, a white nationalist, neo-Nazi, I mean, literally, you see a video of him, high-hailing Trump with his supporters right after Trump won the presidency.
Well, these are vile, wretched human beings. But I don't think that it's fair to create guilt by association. By the same association, I can say that David Duke has recently been praising Ilhan Omar, even though he probably hates Muslims. But he's endorsing her hatred of the Jewish people. So President Trump has condemned white nationalism vociferously ever since Charlottesville. And if we're going to be If we're going to criticize where it's warranted, then we have to offer praise where it's warranted. To connect him with Pittsburgh or with California is an absurdity. These people hate Trump because of his stalwart defense of Israel at the United Nations, his cessation of funding the Palestinian Authority when it uses American taxpayer money for pay for slave policies, which actually reward terrorists for murdering Jews. That's an official law of the Palestinian Authority. I could go on. The pro-Israel community and those who are engaged in Jewish community life feel very grateful to President Trump. So Joy Behar should be cognizant of the fact that the people who she says are the victims are actually saying that the president has really stood with them. I was at a speech that he gave in Las Vegas recently, which couldn't have been more effusive of his connection and praise for the Jewish community. And he has a Jewish daughter and Jewish grandchildren.
So let's talk about anti-Semitism on the left. You touched on this, but this is an argument that bears some thought. Many of the people who are accused of being anti-Semitic, they do say, as you said, we're not anti-Semitic. We're against the policies of the Jewish government, particularly this Jewish government. We are supporters of the Palestinians. There are a lot of Israelis who have that position. They attack the government, they attack the government's positions, but they're obviously not anti-Israel. How do you respond to that?
Of course there are Israelis that are critical of their government. That's the beauty of Israel. Israel's like America. It shares American Western democratic values, freedom of conscience, freedom of speech. Let anyone in the Palestinian Authority try to criticize Mahmoud Abbas. He will either be jailed or dead very quickly. In Gaza under Hamas, he would definitely be dead.
But those people here in this country and outside of Israel who condemn the policies of the Israeli government, whether right or wrong, don't they have the right to do that without being labeled anti-Semitic?
Oh, of course. But there's some. This is where it crosses the line from legitimate criticism of Israel into anti-Semitism. It's where Israel is constantly selected as the only country that you criticize, and you exaggerate the criticism. So, for example, if people here are really interested in Palestinian rights, why aren't they condemning the fact that Yasser Arafat died an absolute billionaire, having stolen more than $1 billion from his people? He was on the Forbes 400 list, this freedom fighter, when he died. Why haven't they accused Mahmoud Abbas of creating a kleptocracy?
He's the head of the Palestinian Authority.
Head of the Palestinian Authority. He was elected to a 4-year term. He's in his 14th year. He has demolished all democracy. He jails all these editors. And his sons, Tariq and Yasser, are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, having cornered the construction monopolies, cigarette monopolies. There's no word about that. What about in Syria, where we don't hear about Iran, Israel's genocidal foe, propping a regime which is genocidal in nature? 500,000 Muslims, innocent Arabs, have been murdered, gassed to death, and yet they see Israel as a greater evil. That's anti-Semitism. If you see Israel as a greater evil for Arabs and the abuse of Arabs' rights than Bashar al-Assad, one of the greatest murderers in all of human history, then you've got something with the Jewish people. You've got a beef with the Jews that you just can't control. Hamas engages in honor killings of innocent Palestinian women who just have boyfriends. It encourages their brothers and their cousins to murder them for the honor of families. Hamas murders gay, LGBT, Palestinian homosexuals who have to run to Israel for protection. All of this is well documented. Israel is a great bastion of human rights. Like any democracy, it's imperfect. Anti-Semitism is where you pick on Israel constantly, you vilify the country, you demonize it. The criticism is not legitimate, and it's where you single Israel out. Why are these same people condemning Israel for an occupation? And by the way, the occupation of Judea and Samaria and the West Bank, where 80% of all biblical events take place, which Israel conquered from Jordan, which had seized it illegitimately after the 1947 war. Only 3 countries recognized Jordan's control of the West Bank, from which Israel won it in a defensive war in 1967. Why are these people using iPhones? China has been occupying Tibet since 1951. The Dalai Lama has been prohibited from visiting his homeland since then. What are we talking, 70 years? And yet people don't care about China's occupation of Tibet. They don't care about Turkey's occupation of Cyprus. They don't care about Russia's occupation of Crimea. I could go on. Where are the UN condemnations of those countries? Israel is picked on, singled out, demonized. That's anti-Semitism.
What do you make of the recent, clearly anti-Semitic cartoon that appeared in the international section version of the New York Times? Were you surprised by that?
I have to be honest with you. I always thought that I'm like unshockable. I'm a 52-year-old rabbi who has been a rabbi for 30 years. I was the rabbi at Oxford University for 11 years. I've lived in Australia, Israel. I'm an American. I thought it was shock-proof when it came to anti-Semitism. I love the New York Times. I read it cover to cover every day. I was absolutely shocked. Because the New York Times, you know, when I say I love the New York Times, I love that it's a quality publication, but its demonization of Israel transcends just one cartoon. The real question is, this cartoon, which was worthy of Der Stürmer in the 1930s Germany, how did it get in? How did it slip by these editors? And the New York Times won't even take full responsibility. Their argument is, we're incompetent. It was one editor making a decision with no oversight. You're the world's most trusted news source, and you're telling us you're incompetent? That's your defense? But the reason it slipped by is what my friend Bret Stephens, the Pulitzer Prize-winning New York Times columnist, said. He said that the editorials of the New York Times have so demonized Israel for so long that the editors are beginning to think that these kinds of cartoons capture the true spirit of Israel. And there has to be a complete revamping of the New York Times editorial policy and even how they report the news about Israel, because it's so slanted, it's so prejudicial, and it's so biased.
Mm-hmm. So what do we do about this? How do we turn this rising hate against Jews around in this country? Let's leave it to this.
You know, one of the great honors of my life was my friendship with Elie Wiesel, and I worked closely with him on many areas. He died on July 2nd, 2016. And he was famous for saying that worse than hatred is indifference. So how do we turn it around? By not being indifferent. We learned 70 years ago, in the biggest genocide in the history of the world, that we have to stand up for ourselves. That we in the Jewish community, it's great to have allies, we need friends, of course, but we need to fight for ourselves. We need to fight demonization of Israel, we need to fight discrimination against Jews, we need to fight prejudice against Jews. So, firstly, the U.S. government has to provide protection, I believe, for synagogues and for mosques and for churches and places of worship. There was horrible slaughter of 50 Muslims in New Zealand, and I was there the day before it happened, by the way. And there were also targets. Secondly, we in the Jewish community need to stamp out anti-Semitism where it rears its head, instead of saying it's not a big deal. It is a big deal. What happened in Nazi Germany, and I don't want to make comparisons because the Holocaust is a unique crime, but as this became more and more severe, first banning Jews from certain professions, and then it culminated in Kristallnacht, Night of Broken Glass, and thousands of people murdered. The international community kept on saying, you know, Hitler's going to ameliorate his policies when a man's in a position of power. He slowly has to. There is no getting better. This stuff doesn't get better unless you oppose it, unless you fight it, unless you battle it. And unfortunately, we in the Jewish community are once again faced with that battle, and we have to man up and oppose it. And that's what we have to do. There's no other choice.
All right. Well, Rabbi Shmuley, thank you so much for joining us today to talk about this very important subject.
Thank you.